Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us live today as we discuss self-care strategies for busy entrepreneurs with Ashley Harriz, who's a therapist with Mid-Atlantic Behavioral Health and is joining us today in recognition of Mental Health Awareness Month. My name is Elise Bordolato with the Emerging Enterprise Center, a nonprofit business incubator part of the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce located on the Wilmington Riverfront. So for those who are just joining in, we are going to be talking about self-care strategies for busy entrepreneurs. Self-care is essential for your personal and professional success and helping to combat mental stressors of running a business, especially during the pandemic. Hi, Marianne. Thanks for joining us. So we are very grateful to be having Ashley Harriz with the Mid-Atlantic Behavioral Health to share expert advice on self-care strategies. For those who have questions, please feel free to throw them in the comments, and we'll get to them as we go through. So thank you again for joining us, Ashley.
Hi, thank you for having me. All right, so self-care I feel like is such a important discussion to have right now, especially with the pandemic. We very much are in outside of pandemic. We are still living very fast-paced lives, and it's very easy to get ourselves put in the back burner versus being in the forefront. The pandemic does not make that any easier. So I just would like to be able to share a little bit of tidbits, express my own experience with self-care, discuss, the top-down approach when it comes to self-care for entrepreneurs and, the higher end business owners up there. I guess my first question that I would like to start out with is just asking you, what is your understanding of self-care?
So for me, one, this topic I feel like is really important for anyone who has felt burnout. And in those times that I have done it. So what I'd like to do is I take almost daily walks. I like for my self-care, sometimes it is in the form of a bath or doing my nails, going to bed really early. Sometimes I jump in bed at there's been days where I'd 7 or 8 p.m. Just because I just need sleep and just kind of to shut off my brain. I do meditate or I love doing, art. I do a lot of art, drawing, painting, anything that makes me feel like I'm stepping away from my computer, because I feel like my computer can suck me into a point, or my phone, where I get a little bit more fatigued digitally.
Absolutely. Kind of like that, you fall into a hole with your phone very, very quickly. So I definitely can relate to that. You mentioned burnout. And so I think that that's a good starting piece, discussing, what is burnout? So we hear this term quite a lot. And a lot of times when I'm talking to people, they don't necessarily recognize what they're experiencing. They know that they're feeling really overwhelmed and really stressed out. But I just want to go over, what are the symptoms of burnout? So what does that look like? So, low energy or fatigue, when we are feeling overly tired and we're in that, for example, like brain fog, it becomes very difficult for us to do our jobs, which can lead us to, a negative thought process, feeling less productive. Depressed mood, so just not feeling like you're yourself, having these almost like feeling like everything is kind of gray is really, really one of the biggest signs. Anxiety, so feeling overwhelmed with your tasks, and sometimes we have heart racing or racing thoughts, or what I call bubble web thoughts of I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and oh my gosh, I forgot to call this person, I need to do this. Easy agitation and increased irritability, overstimulation with the work environment, isolation and withdrawal from others, panic attacks, which if you have ever had a panic attack before or question what that is, that would be, again, the racing thoughts, heart racing, trouble breathing, tightness in chest, feeling defeated. Going home and just feeling defeated and depleted is a huge, huge sign of burnout. poor concentration. So just knowing you have to complete all these things, or knowing you have all these things going on with work or running a business, and just not being able to concentrate on what are my steps A, B, and C to get to the point where I need to get to. Again, unable to complete work tasks. With that being said, letting things pile up and procrastination is a huge, huge sign. Poor sleep and inability to perform your daily task at home. So, like things like eating, bathing, grooming, not being able to be present in the home, feeling like you're struggling to be able to like manage family life or manage a household, different things like that. So, if you are experiencing any of those things, then you possibly could be experiencing burnout. And so, this could be a really important conversation for you to be hearing. So, and one of the things I do want to point out is it's pretty common to experience burnout. So, I really want to emphasize you are not alone if you're feeling these things, especially right now where um, everything is done from a computer. Well, not everyone's job, but most people's jobs are being done from a computer, and they have been over the um, last year or so. And we are social beings. We are meant to have that social interaction. And while yes, like you and I talking right now on the screen is like social interaction, it's not the same. So we're missing that in-person social connection. And so that to a certain extent is a form of isolation, which is going to increase things like burnout. If we're not having those little tidbits of socialization during the day, we are very much more susceptible to something along those lines.
I feel like I personally in my career have experienced varying levels of burnout. And I know over the past year, I am feeling there is that isolation. You're not having that full connection with people, and just there's a digital fatigue. And I feel like everyone is experiencing it.
Yep.
So this is why I do think today's conversation during Mental Health Awareness Month is so important, that we are addressing issues that a lot of people deal with with whatever industry you're in, whatever industry that you're in. So
absolutely. Because I mean, the other thing is while we have while we have been able to be a little bit, and some people have been a little bit more productive while being able to be comfortable in their home while working and everything like that, it mixing home and work life is a very fine line, because home life is supposed to be our safe haven, our ability to just unwind. And when we are in the home and we're working, it's very easy to lose that boundary. And by losing that boundary, it makes things a lot harder. One of the things that I have recognized in my own life is that really we have to be able to separate the two. And so, we are not worker ants, we are humans. And so we have to have both sides of things. We feel like sometimes when I'm talking to people, they feel like self-care is a luxury, but it's not. It's more of a responsibility. Just like you have responsibilities at work, we have a responsibility to take care of ourselves. And that's so, so important. Um, and with that being said, I think that we could probably segue into what does that look like? So how can I start to incorporate self-care? And so I'm just going to give some tips, but then what I would like to do is also to discuss like what the tips are, and then what are we looking for self-care. So some of the tips that I want to mention is, eating well. Obviously, if we're eating well, we're fueling ourselves, we want to make sure we're doing it the right way. Just like how with your car, you want to put in like good gas so it can run better and everything like that. And it's same with like, I guess car oil would have been the better one to use, but you know what I mean. Being able to we want our bodies to run the same way. If we're fueling it in a non-healthy manner, our body's not going to run the way that we need it to. Thing with sleep. Sleep is so, so important. Otherwise, your battery is going to run out. And when your battery runs out, it takes a long time to recuperate from that. Taking breaks. This is one that I think me personally, I struggled with quite a bit in a lot of my different positions throughout employment is skipping lunch. It's so easy to skip lunch. And once you get into that habit, it's a habit that's really hard to break. But it's really, really important. So taking breaks for lunch, being able to maybe go for a walk, stretch. If you're at home, especially now when it's getting to be nicer out, take a moment to go outside, get some fresh air. We don't have to be at a screen all day. Your work will be there. Believe me, it doesn't go away. So you deserve to take, even if it's like a minute, take a minute, go outside, give yourself that break that you deserve. Listen to a podcast or listen to music, use your PTO, take vacations, take some time off, even if it's a mental health day. Um, Ask for help when needed. So this one, especially for my business owners out there, whether you are running a home business and you are by yourself or you have employees, just because you are the owner or you are the um, head of an employment team doesn't mean you can't ask for help. You are a person too. You experience quite a lot. Being the head of a company can be very, very difficult, because not only are you managing different work tasks, but we're also taking the emotional responsibility of our employees. And so it's important that, if you're feeling overwhelmed, delegate tasks appropriately. Um,
And
something while I'm on, Go ahead.
actually, this question. So, have you noticed? Do you have any tips for those who are in charge of building that work culture, on how to really start to set a self-care environment for themselves and their employees?
Absolutely. And I'm going to refer to it as like a top down approach. And so the way that I would really emphasize is you are the model to your employees. And so being able to model self care and promote self care throughout your company and creating that culture is really important, because if we're doing it at the top and we're promoting it towards the bottom, that's going to make us more productive. That's going to make our employees feel more valued. It's going to make the morale of the company and the business better, which is honestly better for everybody involved, right? And so, for example, I'll give you a couple different examples that I've experienced personally and that I've heard about. So at Mid Atlantic here, one of the things that is very much promoted is self care, and it is a really beautiful thing for employees. So, you know, we have certain things, like, for example, we have meetings every week. If we have a meeting and it's been a rough week and we're all kind of feeling it a little bit, then Tracy, I'm going to just say her name, Tracy will promote us to do something like go take a walk. And how beautiful is that, right? To have someone just say, get up, go do something non-work related, take a brain break, let yourself have this moment. Now, with that also being said, something that I also was talking to actually my mom about is that her company will give, they have a lot of multitasking to do, right? And so what they will do is they will give time to shut down their meetings and just focus on work, which is, again, really important, because if we're all feeling overwhelmed and we have all these different things that we're doing and we're multitasking all of the time, we can kind of get into this like autopilot mode where we're feeling constantly overwhelmed. So delegating time just to focus on one thing and giving yourself a break from multitasking, also very important.
So they kind of, as a department or company, they just say like no meetings. Let's just focus on getting something done. So that is good, because a lot of times for me, I know that one of the challenges I have, especially if I have a lot going on, and you talked about that burnout, is I have a tendency, you'll be focused on something, to a task, and then a meeting will come and you have to stop that focus and go to the meeting, which then you have to readjust all of your attention into putting your thoughts into whatever we're discussing in that meeting. So that's interesting. And so they do it just like for the day, for?
I think that it's for a couple hours, but I really, that is a very good idea that can be expanded. If it can be made into a day, absolutely. Because you're right. When we're having something happen, like let's say I'm involved in, working on something that requires, like you said, requires my attention, and then I have to stop to go to a meeting. And that could potentially get to give you the opportunity, not give you the opportunity, but like it stops you from having that motivation sometimes, and it helps you become more distractible. So if you're now having to change your thought process without finishing a different task, now we're going to have to go back to that, try and reprocess exactly what we were doing and make it be effective, which can be really hard. Just like how if you hit the snooze button too much, you're disrupting your sleep because your brain's like, I'm awake. No, I'm not. I'm awake. No, I'm not. And so it's the same thing with that type of work environment and having that multitasking. So, um, a couple other things that I did want to touch on. So, here's a big one, saying yes. Um, Being able to listen and engage ideas from other employees is so important, especially when you're a business owner, because you never know how someone might have a different idea on how to run something, and it might become much more efficient, less stressful. So, really engaging that, building rapport, helping with that morale in the company, it gives your employees the ability to feel heard. And when they feel heard, you're going to feel heard. So saying things, yes to things that you want to do. So when I'm talking to people all the time, they will say, I want to be like this person, or I want to be like that person. Like, I want to be the person that gets up and runs in the morning. Well, what's stopping you? You can create your own reality. So if you want to do something, do it. If you thinking back, if you have had something that has brought you, joy and helped you relax, and you've stopped doing that, try it again. Self-care is a journey. It's not like an A and B thing. And it looks very different from all different aspects. And self-care is not just necessarily at home, it's work, it's relationships, it's hobbies, different things like that. Um,
We were actually just talking about hobbies right before we kind of got on. This idea of hobbies versus actually self-care. So did you want to expand on that? Like, I know people throw around just grab a hobby,
yeah.
or deal with whatever is, causing stress in your life or stressors.
Yeah, absolutely. So that hobby is a word that is thrown around with self-care all the time. You just need to get a hobby. If you get a hobby, then you'll be fine. Which, yes, that's true. It could be helpful, but when it comes to self-care, we don't want to necessarily just pay attention to the action. We want to pay attention to the feeling, because I can go crafting all I want, but if it doesn't make me feel grounded, make me feel present, and make me feel connected, it's not going to have the desired effect.
Sometimes
So,
it makes me feel more stressed because I have to
yeah,
clean up said hobby. I have to learn said hobby. I like
right,
I sometimes feel some of the hobbies I have started are becoming more like work than they are hobbies.
right, exactly. And so, when we're talking about self care, we're not talking about just the action. We want to talk about that feeling, that connected feeling, because that's what we're looking for. Like you said, it can become a chore. We don't want to get done work and then go to work. So we want to find something that's going to give us that release and help us feel more connected. Um, Another thing that's really important, challenge yourself. Give yourself the ability to try to learn something new. Try to build on some of the skills that you have. Um, so, for example, like building, learning a different skill. One of the things that I had to learn for self care is that I don't have to think about my field all the time. I don't have to constantly be thinking about like thinking and learning about mental health. That actually had the opposite effect on me. It made me feel more overwhelmed because that became my life. And in all reality, that can't be my life. It's fabulous. I love it, but I have many different roles that I play. And so doing things like learning something different, and challenging yourself to build on different material will really, really help. Um, Celebrate little wins. So if you're having a hard day, if you notice that burnout and you're having a hard time getting out of bed, or you're feeling really overwhelmed at work and you don't feel like you're able to get certain things done, when you complete a task, or even if you just get out of bed in the morning, pat yourself on the back, because sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's really hard. And almost everyone experiences those days. And it's those, a lot of times we miss those little things to celebrate, and we only look at those big things, but we don't, by that point, we're missing the journey. And the journey is really what we're looking for.
So one thing I love about so for those who were able to tune in last week, last Friday we talked to Ashley's coworker Jenny Lowe about strategies for dealing with imposter syndrome. So if you guys missed it, please feel free to jump on our Facebook page, either the Chamber or the Emerging Enterprise Center, to view that conversation where she also brought up strategies. But this topic is actually getting a lot of engagement. So if you don't mind, I don't want to jump too far ahead from what you're chatting about, but I'd love to talk about one of the comments that we just got in, because I think this topic is really important for especially business leaders. So someone said, unfortunately, as leaders, we spend more time working at our business than on our business. And I've tried to block Fridays for focus time, but one phone call or one email can ruin those plans. And I do feel like this is exactly why we're talking about this, because I feel like it happens for business leaders, for anyone who's in whatever profession. That change of focus can affect your mental state for the day.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, I just want to comment on that topic. And you're absolutely right that a lot of times, if we are working at our business and not necessarily working on it, again, there's that I think I mentioned this in the beginning about boundaries, how important it is to set that boundary. So if you take that Friday night to take off, do it. You deserve to have that time. Again, you are not just your business. You are a person. You deserve to have that ability to remove that. So some different points that I want to make on that. So setting a boundary is really important. Sometimes it's not always doable, but let's say that you're going to be taking Fridays off, and Friday is my day. I'm going to do it.
So I think it seemed like he takes that day as like focus day. So like either kind of like your mom's work, like to get things done, maybe think about, a strategy plan or a growth plan, or, sometimes as a business owner, you're wearing so many hats, and sometimes you need to just take them all off so you can have your creativity, refocused and flow, and have the permission to do that. So I think that's what, if I'm reading it right, I feel like he says he tries to like block Fridays as like his focus day.
Okay. I misunderstood that.
You feel overwhelmed. You get a call, you get an email, and your focus shifts.
That's a good point. That's an absolute good point. Thank you for clarifying, because that is in itself a skill. Setting that, it sounds like taking that time to be able to build structure and build a plan helps a lot. That helps a lot in general with burnout, because we like predictability. We like the ability to understand what is happening next. We have that fear of the unknown, when kind of like when our workspace is a mess, our mind's going to be a mess with it. And so I really love that idea of taking that day to have like as a strategy day to build on that. So that was a very good point. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you for sharing that.
I know for me, and this is kind of around the same thing about working on your business, you're working at your business, or you're so into your getting things done in your tasks that you can't, I have felt this during my burnout. is I feel like I can't, it's almost like walking in sludge. Like
Hmm.
I'm trying to get all of the tasks done, but I can't actually see where I'm going. Um, and I just feel like I'm just always just kind of like pushing through tasks on a daily basis where I don't feel like I'm actually, I don't even know what direction I'm going because I'm looking so down and moving so, trying to move fast through all of our tasks and getting things done in my lists.
Yes. Um, Well, I have never ran a business. What I can say is the way that I can relate to something along those lines is when I was in graduate school. So when I was in graduate school, I was working full time, I was going to school full time, and I was interning almost full time. So I there would be days where I would be working from I would get up and have to be at work by 7, and I would not be getting done till like 1 or 2 in the morning. And so it was very I can understand and appreciate that need to constantly go. Um, I remember I remember the first time I had ever noticed that I felt burnout in that moment. I went out back. I forget what I was going to do. I think I was running to my car real quick, and it took me a moment. It was like one of the days in spring, and I got caught off guard because I noticed the smell of fresh air, and I had thought about in that moment, wow, I haven't done this in a while. I haven't noticed something like this in a while. And so that's where I started to recognize that, adding in things like structure. I was a big fan of lists. I am a list person. If I don't write it down, more than likely I will forget about something. Um, but also, also taking that, it, I started to build in 1 to 2 minute breaks where I would just go outside and breathe the fresh air. That was something for me personally that helped me feel connected.
Going back to burnout, we did have a question is when you're experiencing burnout, when should you seek outside help?
I would say, if you can right away, you know, it's the way that I guess I want to express it is burnout can feel like you're in quicksand, and we will continue to we will continue to sink in that quicksand until we get help. So I want you to envision if you're feeling burnout and there's a rope right there to help you get out of that quicksand. You just have to grab it. And so things like therapy, for example, are really, really helpful because it helps you decompress. I don't know, for those of you who have Facebook, there was this picture um, this picture meme, I guess, that really helps me process things like that in seeking help. And it was this person who was in a therapy office, and the individual was sitting on the couch, and the therapist was across from him, and there was just this big ball of yarn all up here, right? And it was all different colors, and it was really tangled. And as the balls became like as you looked at the therapist, you would see the three balls of color being pulled out and untangled. So if you're feeling this way and you know yourself the best, there is nothing to lose from going and seeking help. You deserve it. You really do.
Well, it's funny. So I know that I'm assuming those who are business owners understand this. Those who are workers understand it. A lot of time when you're in burnout, you're so exhausted
Mhm.
that the idea of more to get yourself out of whatever you're in feels overwhelming and heavy, and you don't know. Like, I know I've been just, sure, you might be burned out from your job, but you need your job
Mhm.
because you need to pay your bills, or you are running a business and you are feeling so burned out, but you are the owner and all of that responsibility is on you. So I feel like you can't just step away, and I feel like that is the one thing is I have, during my burnout, it's hard to just step away, and sometimes you really do need it. That's why I'm saying sometimes I've definitely come home and just gone to bed.
Absolutely. One of the things I do want to say is that I know that with being a business owner or just in general, if you have these different hats that you wear, it can be hard to find the time that is something that I think is a really big barrier a lot. But I want to remind people that since the pandemic, we have seen a huge influx in teletherapy. And so if you don't feel that you have the time to come in and sit somewhere, we have the convenience and the tools to be able to provide you this service in the home. We can figure out how to create that space for you.
So that actually kind of perfectly segues into, I know it's getting into the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
For this, the pandemic has shifted how we worked. It's added a lot of new anxieties into our lives. Everything from, your kids might be at working, you're not working from home, but your kids also might be working from or going to school at home. There's been a lot of anxiety around health. Is there any tips or self-care tips we can share or suggest you have for, this moment to help those kind of anxieties and kind of just mental, physical, emotional issues, those that we're probably all have experienced during this past year?
Absolutely. So if you work at home, something that I recommend is designating a spot for your work. How we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier about how it blurs the line of boundaries when we're in the home. And pandemic has taught us that we can do our jobs from home. But making sure that we are setting a strict place, like anywhere that is a relaxation space for you, try not to do work there. Try not to do work on your bed, or if your couch or something along those lines. It can be comfortable and very convenient, but it also sets that it mixes up that message in your brain of this is my relaxation space versus my workspace. Doing things like sensory stimulation. So lighting a candle, getting a massage, for ladies, get your hair done, get your nails done, paint them yourself if you're really good at it. I'm terrible, so I don't do that. But, making sure that you have that time to spend on yourself, even if it means getting up a little bit earlier during the day and starting out your day that way. One of the things that I had to really start to do is what works for me is starting my day off on a good foot, giving myself the ability to designate a little bit of time to do some self-care in the morning so that I can feel a little bit better during my day. So making sure that you create that space. I think that the hardest part about self-care is starting it and maintaining it, because it's such an easy thing to just put on the back burner. And so right now, more than ever, it's really, really, really important. And if you feel that the tips that we're talking about right now aren't enough, I can't stress enough, please seek out therapy. At the very least, I tell people all the time, at the very least, you get 45 to 50 minutes to just brain dump, let everything out. You get to have that non-judgmental space to be able to just let it out. Because if we keep it in our head, it's kind of like having a stack of books. If each book is a representation of the stress that we're putting on ourselves, we can continue to pile it up and act like it's not there, but eventually it's going to fall over. And picking that up can be so much more difficult when we're having too many books to pick up.
I love that. And I like all of your visual analogies too, to really show that there is weight when you don't take care of yourself, the physical weight that can start piling up on you. I know we talked about a lot. We talked everything from tips to the pandemic, how to build that culture that supports self-care. And we did get another comment. I told you this topic is important specifically to those who are running businesses. So Tiffany has said that it's been wonderful spending time with her son, but having him home while being a support system for 10 employees, multiple clients, and working 50 to 60 hours per week has been overwhelming and exhausting. And I feel like this is such a, unfortunately, common feeling. I mean,
The
specifically when you're
reality.
running businesses. I mean,
Mhm.
you're working and like 50 to 60 hours a week is it's a lot. It's exhausting. Is
Yeah.
there any tips that we can give for Tiffany for how to I love the Focus Fridays. I don't know if there are other ways to um, make sure to put some self-care time in.
Like I said, having those tidbits of like, even if it's 1 to 2 moments, giving yourself a break. For those of you who have younger kids, it can be a little bit more difficult, but having them do something that is sensory engaging for the younger ones to help keep their attention and give yourself a little bit of a mental space is really good for those of you who have older ones. There's multiple areas that I think are really important, and one of the things is talking to the kids about how sometimes it can be really difficult and sometimes we just need a break. And so discussing, how can we set a break for both of us? What can you do to be able to set aside time for yourself, and then what can I do? And again, I really stress to use the supports. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Actually, you know what? I don't think I did. So use your supports and know what they can do. So even if that means like letting the kids go out for a play date with another kid if you feel safe. Of course, we're in the middle of the pandemic, so we have to be careful. We have to be safe. Or, letting them go to their grandparents' house if they're available or something along those lines, giving them the opportunity to go do something that's going to be capturing their attention so you can take that time for yourself. Again, that 50 to 60 hour mark is exhausting, really exhausting. And so that's where firm, hard boundaries is really, really important. My previous employment, I was in the same boat. I was constantly overworking myself and exhausting myself. And I started to realize that I was losing my identity, if that makes sense. I was losing my own identity. I was becoming just that worker person. And so recognizing when I'm getting to that point, you know, setting that hard boundary. I have this beautiful example that one of my supervisors used to talk to me about, and it might sound silly to some, but it really does work. When she got done for the day, what she would do is she would unzip herself and unzip herself before she walked out the door, or for those of you working at home, before you leave your computer, just unzipping yourself, walking away from it, and setting that firm boundary. I am not at work anymore. I am at home. I'm going to be at home. I'm going to be with myself. For me, what I do here is that's me turning the light off. When I turn the light off, that's it. I'm done. Like I, I, I did my due diligence for this. Now it's time for me to focus on the other things. We can't constantly be working all the time. That's just not who we are. So I hope that helps, and explained a little bit more about that. And then again, if you can engage in therapy, even if it's just for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, do it. Please, please take the time.
I know that since I've been I work actually in two places in my home. It depends on sometimes here in this room or in our office. And one thing I have been seeing throughout the pandemic is my neighbor goes on afternoon walks with his kids. So his kids are, he's working from home. He will be working from home for a while, but his kids are, I believe, 9, 10, and 6. So like 9ish, 10, and then 6. And they actually, I just see them lunchtime going for a walk and coming back. So it's interesting he's kind of coupling his time with kids and self-care together.
I
So
Sorry, if I could just add one more tidbit. So, I am recently a new mom. I have a 1-year-old, and so with that being said, she's super dependent on me. She's not independent yet. She wants to have all the time in the world, and so for me, what I do when I get home, if I need a little bit of break, this sounds a little bit silly, but I will give her puffs in like a little container that really she has to really get in there to get. And so that's what I mean by something that like, for those of you who don't know what puffs are, they're like um, little snacks. But I will give that to her so that that can capture her attention and then give me some space. So we could be in the same room, but I can take a mental break while she is doing something independently that's safe, that I don't necessarily have to be super 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 engaged in, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I it does. And I feel like it is important that everyone, I mean, this goes back to the employees, everyone has different responsibilities at home,
Mm-hmm.
and different needs. So making sure that you're creating culture that addresses them for yourself and for your employees. Actually, someone put in the comments a really great tool that, again, this is just we're all learning together, and making sure that we're recognizing strategies to improve self-care and also improve that culture that so they're saying that they try to stick to regular schedule, and Outlook has delay send feature where you can write an email and not send it until business hours. And their senior leaders are encouraging those. So say you're doing something in the evening and it's for sometimes people, especially those who are working at home, maybe needed to take a time away from the normal business hours to go pick up your kids or do whatever. And then you pick it back up, after that 5 p.m. So it's okay that you're making your work fit your schedule, but that doesn't always work best for those you work with. So if you are writing an email outside of work hours, such as evenings or weekends, you can then schedule it to be sent during work hours. So whatever you're requesting, the person who's receiving it might not feel the pressure to have to respond during non-work hours, which I think is a great just tip. So thank you for sharing that.
And that goes again to the top down approach, right? Is, that gives us the ability, especially, the senior leaders are really promoting things like that, and that sets that boundary and that promotes that self-care.
I love that. So I feel like we've talked a lot about self-care strategies. Again, how to use as a business owner. How are you modeling self-care for yourself and to your employees? How we're making sure that we are. I love that. Sometimes burnout can feel like you're just completely being sucked into quicksand, and making sure that you are looking for those ropes so you don't go too deep when you need it. So seeking help when you need it, either taking care of yourself, going to talk to a therapist, talking to friends and family, looking for support systems, asking for help. And then one other person saying, yeah, so I feel like people are using ways of tools such as scheduling your, if you are working outside of business hours and that works for you, which is great, make sure to schedule your emails so it goes within business hours. So I feel like we've talked about a lot of great strategies. Actually, I feel like this topic, I'm keep getting comments. This topic is important. And so for those who are, again, those joining us, if you missed kind of the beginning intro, Ashley Harriz is with Mid-Atlantic Behavioral Health. They have partnered with us to produce this mental health series for Mental Health Awareness Month, to provide tools and strategies for overcoming common struggles that entrepreneurs, small business owners, employees, everyone faces. So thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your expert advice with us today and your strategies. Is there anything else you want to just kind of leave people with before we kind of close out?
So there's three things that I just want to express before we end today. So a lot of the time people think that self-care is selfish, and I really want to hone in on, it's not about me first, it's about me too. That's very important. Self-care is a journey. Just like a car, you're not going to get where you need to go on an empty tank. So take time to refuel. And the last thing that I want to say is the most important relationship you will ever have is with yourself. So please make it a good one and take care of yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Thank
Thank
you
you for
all.
having me.
Oh, absolutely. This is great. And I feel like this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I feel like this is a topic that is very essential. And I feel like the pandemic has just brought a little bit more to the forefront that we do need to take care of ourselves, our mental health, our families, our friends, and ourselves. So thank you so much, Ashley. Thank you for those who are joining in and tuning in with us today. Again, I also mentioned that this was part of a series, and we did put on a video last week with Ashley's coworker, Jenny Lowe, on strategies for how to overcome imposter syndrome. So make sure to go check out some of the videos that are on our Facebook page so you can learn strategies on imposter syndrome. Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing strategies on self-care. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a wonderful and safe rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining in.